This video is brought to you by Skillshare. Hey everybody, welcome to Amy Nolte Music. I have always loved the song How Sweet It Is to Be Loved by You, which of course was a Motown hit from Marvin Gaye and later covered by James Taylor. I'm not pitting these two recordings against each other, maybe like the thumbnail suggests. I love both recordings and I love different things about both versions. So I just want to kind of dive in and talk about what makes them different from each other and what makes them both great. Marvin Gaye recorded How Sweet It Is in 1964 on an album by the same name, and it was written by the great Motown composing team of Holland-Dozier-Holland. They wrote scores of hits for Motown. James Taylor recorded his version in 1975 on the album Gorilla. Now, the main difference that you're going to notice when you hear both tracks is that Marvin Gaye recorded his at a higher BPM, about maybe 10 or 11 beats faster than James Taylor did, and they did them in different keys. Marvin sang in the key of C, and James sang in the key of G.
I needed someone to understand my ups and downs. Needed someone to understand my ups and downs.
Really far apart from each other. We'll talk about that more later. All right, the musicians for the Marvin Gaye recording were the Funk Brothers. The Funk Brothers were the studio musicians, and there are many of them. Listen to that tambourine right out front.
How sweet it is to be loved by you.
That's Jack Ashford, and he's playing a swing pattern on that tambourine, and it is in the forefront. It's chang, chang-a-lang, chang-a-lang. It's the thing that's normally played on the cymbal, the ride cymbal in jazz songs by drummers. But it's on the tambourine here. The drummer is Richard Pistol Allen, and really, apart from the lead fill at the beginning of the toms, he's just mostly playing his snare drum. It's very minimal drumming. And occasionally you'll hear a snare fill.
And thank you, baby. Hey, now.
Earl Van Dyke is the piano player on the session, and you can hear him on many Motown hits, including I Can't Help Myself by the Four Tops. And the piano is right out front.
Ooh, baby.
No matter who does this song, it's a heavy piano tune. You can't play this song without having piano fills everywhere. It just begs for it. And Van Dyke plays mostly up high and just amazing little fills. Let's check it out.
At night, and wonder what would I...
And I love this one also.
Oh, yes, it is, baby.
James Jamerson played bass on the recording for Marvin Gaye, and James Jamerson is probably the most prolific bass player from all of Motown. You can hear him on so many great recordings. He originally started out playing upright bass, even for Motown, but later switched to a Fender Precision bass, and to me, that's a lot of the Motown sound. Jamerson lays down a straight shuffle kind of groove, eighth notes, dun 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 dun, a little bit stilted, tiny bit staccato, but right in the pocket. Let's listen.
I needed the shelter of someone's arms.
And there are gracefully placed triplets and other things that are not just straight eighth notes throughout this recording as well.
All the things I did seems I've done them before. But you brighten up.
You can look up some fun transcriptions on YouTube where other bass players have transcribed what James Jamerson did, and check out how subtly beautiful the bass is on this track.
All the things I did seems I've done them before.
Robert White played the guitar and George Fowler played the organ, both of which are pretty subtle and far back in the mix, but add a nice texture, I think.
My eyes at night and wonder what would I be without you.
The backing vocals were supplied by the Andantes, who were honorary members of the Funk Brothers, I think. And on this How Sweet It Is album, Marvin Gaye used different backup groups. He used Martha and the Vandellas and the Supremes and the Temptations and the Andantes. On different tracks, you hear different backup groups. I'll bet that was pretty revolutionary for the time. And the Andantes are out front. They are there doing bops and oohs and words almost from the beginning and all the way throughout the song. Now, this doesn't happen in James Taylor's version, as we'll hear later, but let's listen a little bit to the Andantes. It's kind of to be expected. I mean, this was the 1960s, and groups like the Andantes, the Supremes, the Temptations, they were everything and everywhere, right? So to have them be an integral part of this recording, I think makes a lot of sense in the 60s. Didn't make as much sense in the 70s. Yeah, we'll talk about it in a second. There are notable differences in the ways that Marvin Gaye and James Taylor sing the melody of this song. Now, the first is just that Marvin Gaye sings it much higher because he's, a whole fifth away from where James Taylor does it. So it's up in a falsetto kind of range for most of it. Super soulful and light, I would say. And another big difference is the way that they sing the title of the song. Listen to how Marvin Gaye goes up on the word is. How sweet it is to be loved by you. And James Taylor does not. How sweet it is to be loved by you. I also feel like Marvin Gaye is much freer in the way that he phrases everything, and James Taylor is a lot more precise, just precision. I like both. I really like both. Marvin Gaye, though, has, there are fillers throughout this song. And I feel like Marvin Gaye wins if there's a competition in the ad-libs because they just seem so much more natural to Marvin Gaye. Check it out. Well, it's like sugar to my soul. It sounds a little more authentic and, just like it's easy and organic for Marvin Gaye. And actually, I take it back. It's easy and organic for James Taylor too, but somehow it's just his little ad-libs at the end have always seemed just a tiny bit cowboy, not corny. I don't know. Just, you know what I'm talking about. It's like jelly, baby. Now, the Marvin version has a piano solo about 2/3 of the way through by Van Dyke, which is great, but it's pretty subtle. And to me, it's like, I don't know, it doesn't stand out a lot. It's pretty subtle, which is really in contrast to what happens on the James Taylor version, but I'll play that one later. We're saving it. It's amazing. All right, James Taylor released his song on the album Gorilla, like I said, 1975. And like I said, he sings it a lot lower than Marvin Gaye. It allows him to be more forceful and precise in the melody. Someone to understand my ups and downs. Now, Clarence McDonald plays piano and Fender Rhodes on this James Taylor version. And you know him from, he also played on the piano for The Best of My Love by The Emotions and I Want You Back by the Jackson 5. So many great hits, and his playing is so tasty. And it starts with just chords in the middle of the piano. And you can hear both the piano and the Fender Rhodes, which is a really nice texture. And you can tell that the very first chord on Boom, How Sweet It Is, actually is a major 7 chord, which you don't hear on the Marvin Gaye. It's a straight major 6 chord on the Marvin Gaye, which is funny because I'm always saying that a major 6 chord is old-timey sounding. I guess this just kind of proves it. And a major 7 chord is, especially with the Fender Rhodes, like in the back, just sitting there in the mix, is so 70s. It was perfect. Now, McDonald plays everything lower than Van Dyke for the most part. Check it out, right in the middle of the piano. But he's out front, just like Van Dyke was on the Marvin Gaye recording. Out front because this is a very strong piano song, like I said. Just doing these amazing gospel kind of fills. It's just like sugar sometimes. Now, there's a strong drum set in this song, which didn't really happen with the Marvin Gaye version. We've got hi-hat, we've got snare, we've got bass drum, just kind of classic drum set shuffle playing. And we also have tambourine, but its role is different. It's not playing that ride pattern, that swing pattern. It's just playing 2 and 4. So what the snare did for Marvin Gaye, the tambourine and snare combination does for James Taylor.
The shelter of someone's arms.
Again, it's just kind of proving the point that these happened 11 years apart. The tambourine had a stronger role in older music from the 60s, I feel like, and not as strong once we move into the 70s. Jim Keltner and Russ Kunkel share responsibilities as drums and percussionists. And Danny Korchmar is the guitarist. And the guitar has a stronger role in this James Taylor version. Let's listen. It's punchier and it's higher, and it's a lot of the times on beat 2 and on the and of 3 and on the and of 4. Listen again.
I close my eyes at night, wondering where would I be.
1, 2, ba 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 ba, like that. And it's subtle, but like I said, punchy. And let's look at the role of the electric bass in the James Taylor version.
You were with sweet love.
Lee Sklar plays bass on this recording. Amazing Lee Sklar. And it's completely different. Well, not completely. Sometimes he does lay down those eighth notes. Boom, 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 boom. I think just on the chorus. But it's very creative. Listen to these lines.
Sweet it is to be loved by you. It's like jelly.
It's a bit more sparse, I would say, than Jamerson, but just as kind of out front and important. I've tried to cover this song before by myself, playing and singing at the piano, and it's nearly impossible. And I think that's because the bass is so creative and subtle and gorgeous and necessary, and I'm not quite capable of tackling all of that subtlety and soulfulness in my own left hand while still doing all of those piano fills with my right hand. I'd probably have to work on it. But bass is integral to this song, and I think both bass players just knock it out of the park. At 2 minutes, 5 seconds, about 2/3 of the way through the song, we get to what might be the most exciting part of this arrangement in the James Taylor version, which is an alto saxophone solo by the great David Sanborn, who we just lost. It's just about the most cutting, soulful, almost screaming at times, appropriate, beautiful solo I could have imagined for this. It's just 8 bars long, just like Marvin Gaye's. It happens in much the same way, but it's so at you, right? It's so just coming at you and cutting through, which is not the same as the piano solo in the other song, which was really subtle. I think it just shows that James Taylor had something almost completely different in mind for his arrangement than Marvin Gaye's. And of course, it sounds very 1975. Modern for 1975, though, isn't it? I think super modern. Yeah, David Sanborn knocked this solo completely out of the park. Now, at 39 seconds, we're going to back up a little bit. Clarence McDonald, it's thought that he probably played the ARP string ensemble synthesizer, which had just come out, was super popular at this time. But this is the first time that we hear the strings.
Sweet love and devotion, deeply touching my...
Such great writing. At 51 seconds, we get the first stop.
I want to stop and thank you, baby. Yes, I do.
Now, I don't know if you noticed, but Marvin Gaye did not do a stop time on the word stop.
I want to stop and thank you, baby.
They just kept plowing right through. I think it's really nice textual painting that James Taylor did that. And then, and then there's a nice walk down when the band comes back in. Super groovy.
And thank you, baby. Yes, I do.
Super groovy, super satisfying. Now at 58 seconds, Carly Simon comes in for the very first time with backing vocals. We don't have a backing vocal group on this one, we've just got Carly Simon. And it's a lot more subtle. It doesn't start right up front, it's later. James Taylor and Carly Simon were married at the time, and it's guessed, I think I found it on the wiki page from this song, that maybe James Taylor sang this to her because they were so madly in love at the time. Check it out the next time she enters at 139.
Thank you, baby. I just want to stop. Thank you, baby.
Just gives a nice subtle punch to a lyric that I think can use just a little brightening up. It sounds so good. I want to head over to the piano for a second to look at one section where the harmony is different, where James Taylor chose to do something subtle but completely different than what Marvin Gaye did. Let's check it out. Now, if we look at the Marvin Gaye version right around 35 seconds when he goes, with sweet love and devotion, it goes from C to F, and then it goes right back to C. Deeply touching my emotion. Just 1 to 4 to 1 to 4. That's the way the song started out. It's fine, but let's listen to what James Taylor did with it. All right, James Taylor does it in the key of G. And he goes, with sweet love and devotion. So 1 to 4, but then we walk up to the minor 6. Deeply touching my emotion. We walk down to 4, and then very briefly, we get a little diminished chord. I want to stop. Now, the only thing, I love that. I love that choice. I love that for you, James Taylor. Deeply touch, let's see, with sweet love and devotion. I love this. Deeply touching. To me, that gives a depth to the song that wasn't there before. My emotion. But then we have this little walk up. And the only thing that's not satisfying is that it goes right back to the 1. It doesn't do the 5 of 1, so that resolution isn't quite as satisfying as I wish it was, but I think it's the right call. And yeah, I just absolutely love going up to the minor 6 right there. I think that was a really cool move. All right, after David Sanborn's solo, check out the way that James Taylor comes back in, which maybe is my favorite part of both songs. It maybe is.
You were better to me than I was to myself.
The precision and the way that he articulates the lyric, you were better to me than I was to myself, is just my favorite. You were better to me than I was to myself. Also, it's like the definition of love, so why shouldn't it be my favorite part, I guess? A little later, David Sanborn gets to come back in with some cool fills. Check this one out. And how about this one? And at 3:03, James Taylor kind of cuts off a David Sanborn fill, which I'm not entirely crazy about.
It's like jelly, baby. Oh, yeah.
But somehow it's kind of adorable too. Same thing at 3 minutes, 12 seconds, but this time it's just Sanborn. And he just keeps playing these fills for another 20 or 30 seconds. I think it's so cool that they just let him go. Now, one of my last points is that both of these songs end with a fade out. Now, I've heard some wedding bands and even some vocal jazz groups cover this song, and the reason why it will never be as good and why I kind of think people maybe shouldn't try to cover this song live is because it ends with a fade out. And if you try to think of a punchy way to end this song without just fading out, I think it's a fail. Like, I don't think there's a good way to do it. And it's a testament to what a great song it is. Like how about this? You have such a great song that there's no way to end it. It just wants to go and go and go, which I think might be one of the reasons that this might be one of the best songs ever written. I don't know, maybe somebody could work on it really, really hard and learn to fade out live and just get quieter and progressively quieter, and then they just are down at nothing, and then nobody thinks it's really weird that the band has just stopped playing. No, I don't know about it. Maybe it's a skill I need to work on. I have been working on a new skill lately I wanted to tell you about, and that is getting inside of the mind of Jacob Collier with his course on Skillshare. Jacob shows us how to create our own sound, and to me, not most, but a lot of what Jacob Collier does has to do with harmony. So even though I can learn how to create my own melody here, I can discover the axes of sound that he talks about. I can also kind of get into his brain about how he thinks about harmony. I love the part where he talks about the harmonic series and how all harmony is out there in nature. And we hear, for instance, a major chord already in nature.
That's the next overtone up, and then there's this one. And then there's this one. This one. Etc. And you may be thinking, how is it that in all of those notes, that all of those notes are within the note that I sang? If I play all of those overtones at once, it sounds like this. Right, that's just the first 10 overtones. And the first 5 overtones that we hear, what you hear is actually a major chord.
He talks about how to combine melody and harmony and how to explore time and rhythm, all things that he is just an absolute genius with regard to, in my opinion. Skillshare is the largest online learning community for creatives, with thousands of classes led by industry experts across film, illustration, design, freelance, productivity, and more. Another of my favorite classes taught me how to take better photos with my iPhone. I loved that one. So the first 500 people who watch this video and join Skillshare can have a month for free. If you're thinking about learning a new skill this summer, joining Skillshare is a great idea. There will be skills there that you maybe hadn't even considered taking up yourself that are just waiting for you to put your own spin on them. Clicking the code that you see right here on the screen or in the description of this video, like I said, will get you a month free. See how you like it and start learning a new skill. Thanks everybody for watching. I'll see you next time on Amy Nolte Music.